to my channel Shimna Study Corner. Today, we're going to discuss the very first chapter of a first flight textbook, A Letter to God. The author of this story is G.L. Fuentes. He was one of the greatest writers of that time. He was a Mexican poet, novelist, and also journalist. The story revolves around the idea of having unquestionable faith in God. The story here is the one taking place in a Latin American country. So now let's move on to the chapter without much delay. The house, the only one in the entire valley, sat on the crest of a low hill. From this height, one could see the river and the field of ripe corn dotted with the flowers that always promised a good harvest. The only thing the earth needed was a downpour or at least a shower. Throughout the morning, Lencho, who knew his fields intimately, had done nothing else but see the sky towards the northeast. So from this paragraph, we understand that Lencho's house was the only one on the top of that hill. After that, the author tells us about the scenic beauty of that place. From that height, that means from the height at which the house stood, a person could see the river and the field of corn which was dotted with the flowers. And these flowers always gave them a promise that they would get a good harvest. The only thing that the earth or the field required was a downpour or a shower. That means the only thing that the field required was water, that is rain. Now, throughout the morning, Lencho, who knew his fields intimately, that means Lencho knew his fields intimately, very closely. So, the whole day, right from the morning, he had been doing nothing but watching the sky in the northeast direction. This is because probably the rain clouds would come from that direction. Now, let's move on to the next part. This part actually begins with a conversation between Lencho and his wife. Both of them share their expectation of getting plentiful rain so that they would get a good harvest. We also see that the kids, the older boys were working in the field and the smaller ones were playing near the house. So we get a complete idea of the family. After that, Lencho's wife calls out to all of them to have dinner. And as they were having dinner, what happened? The rain started falling as Lencho had predicted. To predict means to foretell. We had already seen that Lencho was observing the sky in the northeast direction. And exactly from that direction, huge mountains of clouds started approaching. Lencho went out into the rain to enjoy the feel of rain on his body. And then when he comes in, he compares the raindrops to 5-cent coins and 10-cent coins. This is because of two reasons. One is due to their appearance or the size. The second one is that these raindrops are going to bring him good harvest, which would in turn bring him huge sum of money. With a satisfied expression, he regarded the field of ripe corn with its flowers draped in a curtain of rain. So, once the rain started falling, he became very happy and he was looking at his field receiving that very precious rain which was required. But then suddenly things changed. Let's see what happened. But suddenly a strong wind began to blow and along with the rain, very large hailstones began to fall. These truly did resemble new silver coins. So what happened? All of a sudden, there was a huge change which occurred. The rain changed into hailstones. So now there was a hailstorm happening. Definitely, this is not going to be very good for the crops. Okay, and these hailstones resembled new silver coins. The boys, that is Lencho's kids, what did they do? They ran out into the rain so that they could collect the frozen pearls. So in the beginning, they were quite excited when they saw the hailstones. So the children showed their excitement by running out into the rain and collecting the frozen pearls, which means the hailstones. When this continued for some time, Lencho started getting tensed. "It's really getting bad now," exclaimed the man. "I hope it passes quickly." He really wished that the hailstorm would pass quickly. But did it pass? No, it did not pass quickly. The hailstorm continued for 1 hour, and the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, and the whole valley was covered with hail. Most of all, the cornfield looked as if it was covered with salt. Once the hailstorm was over, the condition of the cornfield was very pathetic. There was not even a single leaf that remained on the trees, and the flowers from the corn plants had all fallen off. Now Lencho was really unhappy. All his efforts had gone in vain. So Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. When the storm had passed, he stood in the middle of the field and said to his sons, what did he say to his sons? A plague of locusts would have left more than this. The hail has left nothing. He means to say that a plague of locusts would have been much better than the hail. Now, what is locust? This insect that you see here now is a locust. This one attacks plants. It causes huge damage to crops. So, a plague of locust is an attack by locusts in huge number. So, Lencho means to say that a plague of locust would have left more corn than the hail. That means the hail has left nothing. Lencho was very much distressed because he understood that that year they would have no corn, and that meant that their family would have to starve for that year. He says that there would be no one who would be able to help them. So he was completely broken. In the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house in the middle of the valley, there was a single hope: help from God. So, this was their last hope. What was it? The help that they would receive from God. Don't be so upset. Even though this seems like a total loss, remember, no one dies of hunger. That's why they say, no one dies of hunger. So those two dialogues tells us about their last hope, how dependent they were on their last hope, that is the help from God. That night turned out to be a sleepless night for Lencho. All through the night, Lencho thought only of his one hope, the help of God, whose eyes, as he had been instructed, see everything, even what is deep in one's conscience. As children, all of us would have been instructed about the importance of praying and importance of spiritual life and all those things. Similarly, Lencho was also instructed in his childhood. He was instructed that God sees everything, even what is there in our mind. So he was a firm believer. Then the author says that Lencho was an ox of a man. Now here Lencho is compared to an ox because of his hard-working character. He worked like an animal in the fields. But that doesn't mean that he was illiterate. He knew how to write. He was literate enough to write. So what did he do? The following Sunday at daybreak, he began to write a letter which he himself would carry to town and place in the mail. So he decides to write a letter. And the next Sunday, he would take it to the town and put it in the mail or place it in the mail. That means he would post the letter. And what was this letter all about? It was nothing less than a letter to God. So, from this, we understand that his faith was so strong that he actually believed that if he wrote a letter to God, he would be getting a response from God. The next part talks about the content of the letter that Lencho wrote to God. Let's see what that is. God, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. I need 100 pesos in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop comes. Because the hailstorm, and then the letter continues like that. So what is his demand that, or what is his request that he is putting forward to God? He is requesting to the God to give him 100 pesos. Peso is actual dimension of Mexican currency. So this is what he is requesting for. He is requesting for 100 pesos so that he could sow his field again and he could sustain his family till the crop is ready to be harvested. So this is his request. He wrote to God on the envelope, put the letter inside, and still troubled went to town. So he took an envelope and just wrote. The address that he wrote on the envelope was to God. And then he went to the town. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it into the mailbox. So he posts the letter at the post office. An employee in the post office who took the letter found the address really funny. Let's see what happened after that. One of the employees, who was a postman and also helped at the post office, went to his boss, laughing heartily, and showed him the letter to God. Never in his career as a postman had he known that address. So they found it really funny, and he took the letter to his boss, that is, a postmaster, to show this amusing thing. The postmaster, a fat, amiable fellow, also broke out laughing. So initially, the postmaster, who was fat and amiable means friendly. So this person also found this amusing and they started laughing. But immediately there was a change in his attitude. What is it? But almost immediately he turned serious and tapping the letter on his desk commented, "What faith! I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter," starting up a correspondence with God. So, though he laughed initially, then he started admiring the strength of faith that Lencho had, and he really wished that he had such a kind of faith. After seeing Lencho's faith, the postmaster takes a very important decision. Let's see what that decision is. In order not to shake the writer's faith in God, the postmaster came up with an idea. Answer the letter. Yes, the postmaster decides to give an answer to this letter. But when he opened it, it was evident that to answer it, he needed something more than goodwill, ink, and paper. So obviously, when he opened the letter, he understood that it's not just enough if he write a reply back, because the request of Lencho was to give him 100 pesos. So yes, the postmaster required money in order to answer this letter. But did he step back from his decision? No. What did the postmaster do? But he stuck to his resolution. He asked for money from his employees, he himself gave part of his salary, and several friends of his were obliged to give something for an act of charity. So he started collecting money from his employees, from his friends, and he even gave a part of his salary for this cause. Lencho's request was for 100 pesos. Was the postmaster able to collect 100 pesos for Lencho? Let's find out. It was impossible for him to gather together the 100 pesos, so he was able to send the farmer only a little more than half. He put the money in an envelope addressed to Lencho and with it a letter containing only a single word as a signature: God. So what happened? It was not possible for the postmaster to collect 100 pesos. He was able to collect only a little above half, that is 50 pesos, a little more than 50 pesos. He was only able to collect that much. However, he put the money in an envelope and then along with that he wrote a letter. It was not a letter as such. He just signed in a paper as God, and he put that letter too in the envelope along with the money. Comes to the post office on the next Sunday. Now let's see what happened in the post office on that day. The following Sunday, Lencho came a bit earlier than usual to ask if there was a letter for him, because he was expecting a letter from God. It was a postman himself who handed the letter to him, while the postmaster, experiencing the contentment of a man who has performed a good deed, looked on from his office. So, you remember the postman who picked up his letter and laughed a lot seeing the address, isn't it? So the same postman handed over the letter to Lencho this time, whereas the postmaster who has done this good deed of collecting the money for Lencho was sitting in his office and looking from there. Lencho showed not the slightest surprise on seeing the money. Now, why did not Lencho show the surprise? Because he was very sure, when he wrote the letter itself, he was very sure that God would send him money. So there was no surprise. He was expecting this money. Such was his confidence. But he became angry when he counted the money. Now, why did he become angry? God could not have made a mistake, nor could he have denied Lencho what he had requested. Now he was angry because the amount that was there in the envelope was less than what he had asked for. So he became angry, thinking that God would not have made a mistake. Then how did he not get 100 pesos? He felt that someone had played some crooked game in between. What did Lencho do next? Immediately, he went up to the window to ask for paper and ink. So he was planning to write something. On the public writing table, he started to write with much wrinkling of his brow caused by the effort he had to make to express his ideas. When he finished, he went to the window to buy a stamp which he licked and then affixed to the envelope with a blow of his fist. So, what do we understand? After a lot of struggle, he had to think a lot, he had to strain a lot before he wrote this letter. After completing this letter, he put it in the envelope and affixed a stamp. And then let's see what he did after that. The moment the letter fell into the mailbox, the postmaster went to open it. So he posted the letter after writing it. Immediately, the postmaster goes and opens the letter. And he is reading the contents of the letter. Let's see what the contents of the letter is. God, of the money that I asked for, only 70 pesos reached me. Send me the rest since I need it very much. But don't send it to me through the mail because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks. Lencho. So what has happened over here now? He misunderstood the people who helped him. He calls them a bunch of crooks. He felt that the post office officials stole the money, that is, stole the 30 pesos that God had sent him. Okay, so even after doing something good, the post office officials are being misunderstood over here. But this also shows the strength of Lencho's faith in God. So with this, we come to an end of this chapter. Hope you have understood my explanation of this chapter. Please comment your opinions below in the comment box. So for more videos, subscribe to my channel and please do keep following and supporting. See ya.